Well, hello there, motherfuckers, and welcome to another game review. And I have been waiting to review Super Mario World for quite some time. It is one of my favorite Super Nintendo games of all time, and we're going to be looking at it right here in this video in an in-depth review. And I will be playing it on my Super Nintendo Classic. I hope you guys all enjoy the review. So our game starts off in Dinosaur World, the new location for this game, and once again, Princess Toadstool has been kidnapped by Bowser. What a surprise there, right? Are you shocked? Well, I don't think you are. You've kind of come to expect this. Things haven't changed. 25 years from now, it's still the same old story from Mario game to Mario game. Um, and we are introduced into quote unquote 96 new levels. So, there's a problem here because this number is inflated. And I noticed a lot of reviews here on YouTube, that go for the nostalgic trip. There's not 96 levels in this game. I'm just going to say that. That number is touted because many of these levels have alternate exits, such as alternate goalposts or secret keyholes that you can find by finding a key in the game. You find the corresponding keyhole, you'll be able to access other levels and secret exits to the game, and they will total up to a 96 if you find all of them by the end of the game. That is not 96 levels. I'm sorry I have to start off this review a bit negative, but this is something that's been touted for way too long, and we've let Nintendo get away with this fake number. Yes, there's 96 something, but there's not 96 levels. I'm sorry. In my opinion, I mean, it's not really opinionated. I believe that Super Mario Brothers 3 is probably the bigger game. I don't have the exact count on the number of levels in that game, but it felt bigger, it felt longer. And speaking of which game is longer, both games are long, but thank God Super Mario World actually has a save feature this time around. I grew up with Super Mario Brothers 3 on Super Mario All-Stars, which is a graphical 16-bit overhaul remake, and that game had a save feature. I didn't realize until many years later that the original NES game did not have a save feature, and that is absolutely crazy when you consider the fact just how long that game was. So, 96 levels or not, the game is still pretty long. Thank God it's got a save feature. Uh, and this, speaking of 16-bit overhauls, this is Mario's introduction to the 16-bit world, and man, does it look glorious. First of all, I have to say, you take a look at that overworld map, and that's just iconic. I look at that, and I just see my childhood staring back at me. These levels are, pretty well designed, I have to say. When it comes to game design, this is how Super Mario World has gained its reputation. There are many challenges throughout these levels, many different enemies, some new, a lot of them already, old, returning from previous games. There are a number of different levels in this game. They're also new. The fortresses return. They're very similar to the castles. There's not really a big difference between the two. Their interiors are pretty much identical. The castles are where the Koopa kids reside, who are returning from the third game. One little side note unrelated to this game. I never understood why in the Super Mario Brothers cartoon, why they renamed all the Koopalings, all of Koopa's kids for some reason. They gave them all different names in the cartoon. To kind of reflect their personalities, I guess. But here they have, normal names. Wendy, Iggy, Lemmy, and they all have different attack patterns, different from what they had in Super Mario Brothers 3. Some of them are more challenging, some of them are easier. It kind of depends on, what kind of a gamer you are, and what you find to be difficult. So it's cool that they all have their own little patterns and their own little scenarios. Some of them share the same type of scenario. Ghost houses. These are probably my favorite levels in the game, especially if we're talking about certain ghost houses in particular. These are levels that are focused more around puzzle solving, which are brand new to this game. I mean, puzzle solving is not something really saw up to this point. There was some of it slightly in Super Mario Brothers 2, certain sections where you would have to throw bombs and break open certain areas of the level, but those were very few and far between. So Super Mario World is one of the first puzzle-solving Mario games. And the Ghost Houses bring that about in grand fashion, especially with their alternate exits. And I got to talk about the Valley of Bowser Ghost House here briefly. Here on the screen, you're seeing a very hard-to-access area. If you manage to get to this point, you should give yourself a pat on the back. This part is pretty challenging. I'd say it's probably one of the most challenging secret exits in the game. Really, finding it is not so much the challenge. It's actually getting into it. If you look at the left of the screen I'm showing you here, you see that little tiny space? Yeah, you would think that Mario would be able to fit in there. But ask yourself, how did I get up here? As tiny Mario, how did I manage to do that? Mario can't jump that high. You're gonna find out how you do that by playing this game, and it is a bitch, to tell you the least. It is not easy, and there's a few steps involved, and I didn't even really get up here by doing it the right way. You could just say I got lucky. So the Ghost Houses really bring about a lot of great puzzle solving. Finding their alternate exits is a real challenge. Some of the alternate exits in the other games, in the other levels rather, are quite challenging as well to find. One is actually, two, mind you, is actually located behind the original goalpost in the game, the main goalpost. They actually thought to put an additional exit behind the goalposts, which are just, this is ridiculous when you kind of think about it. It's a total mind fuck to think where they would hide these exits. And you'll see that, and that's Super Mario World really deserves the credit for really coming up with some unique and challenging ways of finding these alternate exits if you want to 100% the game. The power-ups in this game come back, well, some of them anyway. Such as the Fire Flower and the Mushroom and the Invincibility Star. However, you could say goodbye to the Raccoon Tail, say sayonara to the Takuni suit. You could say, adios to the Hammer Brothers suit, and the Frog suit, well, that one's long gone as well. So you might be saying, what happened to all the inventory in the previous game? Well, I guess you could kind of chalk that up to the developers trying to still figure out how to program on 16-bit hardware, so we could kind of figure it out. But there are a lot of missing cool power-ups from the third game that are not present here. Instead, we get really just two new power-ups, really, to be quite honest. And one of them isn't even that common. The most common one is the Cape Feather, which I absolutely love, and it is my favorite. Even though it doesn't really allow you to fly, it allows you to glide. The thing I love about this is what the Raccoon Tail did in Super Mario Bros. 3, it also does in this game. And that makes platforming a whole hell of a lot easier. And you will feel naked in this game without it. There are so many parts in these levels that are challenging when it comes to platforming, but they are a cinch when you have the Cape Feather, because it allows you to slow your descent. You fall a lot slower when you have your cape. You could also, if you're having problems with certain parts of the level, in certain cases you could just glide right over them, making this game certain levels a total cinch. And you can kind of consider it as somewhat of a makeshift easy mode of sorts. So I really enjoy the cape, even though we're missing a lot of the really fun original suits that were included in the third game. At least we get one really good new power-up. And the other one that I was mentioning is the P balloon, which sounds a bit weird. You actually grow 3 times the size, and I'm talking not about the new Super Mario Brothers of just growing big. No, Mario gets fatter, and he uses this balloon to float. And this is something that's introduced in a later level in the game that has caused many people pain, and I think you know what I'm talking about if you're familiar with the levels of this game. But you won't really see this power up that much. And it's like I said, this is one of the most disappointing parts of the game. People transitioning from the third game to World will notice a total lack of power-ups. And, you know, I also missed the inventory. You had this huge inventory. Well, one thing that has now changed is that you could actually carry an additional power-up into a level with you. You press select, and that power-up will fall from the top of the screen, and you'll be able to collect it. So if you have the Fire Flower, you can now turn into Fire Flower Mario for Cape Mario. And then, once you do that, then the feather will actually transport itself to the top of the screen, and then you can press select again and turn the Cape Mario when you want. So this is a pretty neat way of going about things, and starts to make up for the lack of inventory that is missing from the previous Mario installment. Also, you're now equipped with a new spin attack, which you could use to now dispatch the turtles in one hit. You can now spin on a Koopa, and you know he won't just pop out of his shell. You'll be able to just completely defeat him. So that's a pretty nifty new attack. You could also use it to spin and break blocks that are underneath you. And another addition that is a huge addition for the future of this series is the addition of Yoshi, which is also another part of the plot that you will learn in the first or second level of the game, depending on which level you choose to play first. You will learn that there are Yoshi eggs that have been kidnapped from the Yoshis living on the island, and they're now been taken into custody by the Koopa kids. So, aside from, you know, beating these castles to, you know, further yourself through Dinosaur World, you'll be rescuing these eggs as well. And Yoshi is a great companion. He can eat enemies. He also has his own set of power-ups. If he swallows certain Koopa shells, he will be able to spit fire. Another one will make him grow wings, and you'll be able to fly. So, again, this is a separate type of power-up. It's not really one of Mario's power-ups, but it is cool that Yoshi has a few little tricks that he can perform. And it, like I said, it sort of makes up for what is missing from the third game that didn't make it into World. And Yoshi has a legacy of his own. I mean, this guy would, you know, be in the sequel to this game, which would be Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island. So Yoshi would not be going anywhere anytime soon after this game. One of the greatest parts of this game, one of the greatest mysteries, is Star Road, which plays into the secret exits of this game. And you'll notice that upon completing certain levels, you will gain access to a place called Star Road. And once you beat all the parts of Star Road, all the levels that are contained in Star Road, you will be granted access to a special area, which are special stages, which are some of the most difficult levels in the game. And some of these really are a pain in the neck. I'm a veteran in this game, so from my playthrough for this review, some of these levels were not as much of a pain as they were through previous playthroughs, because I've gotten used to them, such as Tubular, which I started talking about earlier in the review when I mentioned the P-Balloon, which the thing that made this such a bitch in the, you know, in my first couple of playthroughs as a child, was the fact that you really didn't get the P-Balloon that often in the game, so you weren't really used to how it works. And Mario moves very slowly, his physics change, and basically you will have to complete this level before you deflate. And you'll have to collect a few P-Balloons, and when there's a lot of obstacles in your way, airborne obstacles, mind you, this makes for a very challenging level. And these are some very creative levels. They're very bizarre levels, and justly so, because they're a special area of the game, and you won't be able to access these levels unless you're already a pretty skilled player. So this game definitely rewards you for exploration, and it definitely rewards you for really mastering the platforming and the different mechanics in this game. And you're definitely want to get accustomed to that cape feather, because I will tell you, if you're looking for these secret exits and you're looking to complete Star Road, you're going to want to familiarize yourself with those cape mechanics. At the end of this game, you're going to face off against Bowser, and this is one of the best Bowser fights. And so when you reach the end of this game, of course you're going to square off against Bowser. You know, if you're doing the Star Road cheating trick, if you're doing the speed run, you've probably already you know, beaten him before you've even gone through a quarter way through the game. As a kid, I was trying to figure out how to beat Bowser until I figured that you had to actually grab one of his Mecha Koopas and throw it up at him. This is definitely a way better boss battle than what we experienced in Super Mario Bros. 3. That really was a horrendous fight. It felt kind of cheap, especially, you know, after they had made quite a bit of advancements in the 8-bit realm up to that point. You know, basically Bowser did himself in with his own ass as he went crashing through his own brick floor in his own boss room. It was like two stupid villains in a row. First we had Super Mario Bros. 2, where Wart had his own vegetable machine that ended up killing him, you know, located in his own palace. And then we had Super Mario Bros. 3 with Bowser actually falling through his own floor like a goddamn goof. So thankfully we get a more competent version of Bowser, where he brings along his clown cup with the big creepy smiley face. He's going to be dumping cannonballs at you. Flames are going to be raining down from the sky. So overall, it is a way better boss battle with way better mechanics. And there's actually a better, less simple-minded strategy needed to beat him. After you beat the game, you get... I remember when this had me stumped as a kid. And I would actually, you know, I was like, what am I supposed to do? Because the game mechanics really changed for this boss fight against Bowser. Then I found out that you had to throw the Mecha Koopas up at him. And when I thought about that, that was really when I started thinking outside the box with video games. And I was like, you know, with some experimentation. Nowadays, you would just consult it on you know, through game facts. You know, you just look it up. But back in the day, if you couldn't figure out what to do in a video game, you either called up the really expensive Nintendo hotline, which was, you know, really expensive. That shit was like a dollar a minute. And this was actually the only game where me and my father, who used to play this game together when I was a kid, this was the only game where we actually called that hotline and found out how to beat one of the levels. And it was how to get the secret key in one of the Star Road levels. And then we found out that we had to find the secret switch to fill in one of the colored blocks, which is another addition to this game. There's a lot of empty blocks, and you'll have to find these secret hidden switch places, and then you'll be able to fill in the blocks with the according color, and you'll be able to reach previously inaccessible areas of the game. And so that was a great memory for me. Having my dad call up the hotline and figuring out how to beat it. So, you know, looking back on this game, all the secrets and, you know, just having to really use your resources back in the day, it was really fun. And finding out the secrets, you felt a sense of accomplishment. So, you know, a lot of the online stuff has kind of killed the mystery of games. Some of those secrets, you know, would just, you know, you'd be stuck on games sometimes for days, weeks, sometimes months even. But you know, looking back on it, it was really worth it. It was an experience, and we kept playing these games. It was something that we loved these games so much because they were so good, even though they were frustrating because we couldn't figure out what to do and it was making it hard to progress through a level, but it was all the more worth it. So there you go, guys. There's a review of Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario World. And we will be looking at Yoshi's Island also on this channel. I don't know if it will be the next game in the series, but look for that one to be coming out soon. Hope you all enjoyed the review. Until next time, guys.